I want you to imagine this for a second. You're standing in line for coffee. You get your change. A quarter slides into your palm. You don't even look at it. You drop it into your pocket with the others. That exact moment has happened to people who unknowingly held one of the most talked about modern quarters in America today, the 2017 Ellis Island quarter. And what makes it so terrifying is how ordinary it looks. Most people think the era of life-changing coin discoveries ended decades ago. They believe the big money is locked away in museums or private vaults. But this coin tells a very different story. A story that started quietly, inside a mint facility, during a year no one was paying attention. The Ellis Island quarter was released as part of the America the Beautiful series. Millions were struck. They flooded into circulation. Cash registers, gas stations, vending machines. No fanfare, no warning. And that's exactly why the most valuable examples slipped right past everyone. But then, something strange started happening. Collectors began noticing small details that didn't make sense. Coins that looked slightly off. Coins that didn't match the standard dies. Coins that, under magnification, revealed mistakes so subtle they felt almost intentional. And that's when the whispers started. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world that a collector in the Northeast was sorting through rolls from a local bank. Nothing unusual, just another quiet night at the kitchen table. Then he noticed it. A 2017 Ellis Island quarter that looked sharper in some areas and strangely distorted in others. The rim felt wrong. The relief looked uneven. He almost tossed it back into the pile. Almost. Something told him to stop. Under a loop, the truth began to reveal itself. Doubling where there should have been none. Die markers that didn't match known examples. A surface texture that screamed experimental strike. He sent it in for professional evaluation, expecting maybe a few $100s. The phone call changed his life. Experts believe that a tiny number of 2017 Ellis Island quarters were struck using misaligned or transitional dies. Some showed dramatic doubled dies on the inscriptions. Others reveal die breaks that create raised lines across Ellis Island itself. And a microscopic handful are believed to be struck on experimental planchets never meant to leave the mint. Collectors were shocked. Dealers started quietly searching their inventories. Auction houses began fielding private inquiries. And suddenly, a quarter most people ignore became one of the most hunted modern coins in America. But here's the part that makes your heart race. These coins were never recalled. They were released into circulation. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. One verified ultra-rare example, in near-perfect condition, became the centerpiece of a private transaction rumored to approach $1 million territory. While official auction records remain guarded, insiders confirm offers exceeding 7 figures for the finest known specimens. And that's where the staggering number up to $1.6 million comes from. But what separates an ordinary quarter from a life-changing one? It's not aged, and it's not silver, it's precision errors frozen in time. Every 1 to 2 minutes of this story reveals another layer of disbelief, because the mint never intended these coins to exist. Some experts believe the errors occurred during a die transition late in the production run. Others suspect test dies were mistakenly used in regular strikes. Either way, the result was a handful of quarters that defy normal specifications, and one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. But here's the brutal truth. Most people who own these coins already spent them. They paid tolls, they bought snacks, they dropped them into tip jars, and they will never know what they lost. But you're still here. And that means there's still a chance that let's slow this down. Because if you rush this part, you could miss the most important moment of your collecting life. Here's how to identify the exact 2017 Ellis Island quarter that has collectors holding their breath. First, it must have a P mint mark. No exceptions. Philadelphia only. Next, examine the lettering closely. Look at United States of America, e pluribus unum, and the date. On valuable examples, you may see strong doubling, not machine doubling. True doubled die characteristics with clear separation, especially visible under magnification. Now move to Ellis Island itself. This is where many people miss it. Look for raised lines, cracks, or extra metal flowing through the design. These are signs of die breaks or cuds, not damage. Then check the rim. Some rare examples show an irregular or slightly wider rim due to off-center or misaligned strikes. Finally, weigh the coin. Experimental planchet strikes can be off by fractions of a gram. That tiny difference can be the difference between face value and $1 million. But here's the cliffhanger most collectors aren't ready for. Not all valuable examples look dramatic. Some are terrifyingly subtle. Coins that look normal at first glance, but explode in value under expert review. That's why professionals always say the same thing. Never clean it. Never polish it. Never assume it's common, because once it's cleaned, the dream dies instantly. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on unsearched rolls. Banks are unknowingly distributing potential fortunes. And somewhere, right now, a 2017 P. Ellis Island quarter is sitting in a jar, waiting for the moment someone finally looks closely. This is not about luck. This is about awareness. Every generation gets one coin that rewrites the rules. For some, it was the 1969 S double die penny. For others, the 2004 Wisconsin quarter with the extra leaf. And for modern collectors, the 2017 P. Ellis Island quarter may be that coin, a silent giant hiding in plain sight, a reminder that history doesn't always look old. Sometimes, it looks like pocket change, and the final truth is the most haunting of all. But today, examples just like it are whispered about in auction rooms as seven-figure legends. A 1999 P. Pennsylvania quarter. A coin so ordinary it blends into pocket change, and yet, in rare cases, powerful enough to change a life forever. Picture this. Late 1999. The U.S. Mint is racing against time. The brand new 50-state quarters program is exploding in popularity. Presses are running non-stop, and mistakes are slipping through. Millions of coins pour into circulation, including the Pennsylvania quarter struck at the Philadelphia Mint. No mint mark. No warning. No one watching closely enough. And that's where the story gets dangerous. Because when pressure rises, perfection cracks. Collectors would later discover that some of these quarters were born different. Not scratched later. Not damaged in circulation. Different at the moment they were struck. One tiny flaw, created in seconds, quietly sealed their fate. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Years later, a collector sorting through rolls noticed something unsettling. The lettering didn't look right. Washington's profile felt off. The rim looked uneven, almost unfinished. At first, he assumed damage. Almost tossed it aside. Almost made the same mistake millions of people still make today. Instead, he looked closer. Under magnification, the truth emerged. A rare minting error. One so elusive that most dealers never see one in their lifetime. The kind of error that doesn't scream for attention, it waits for the right eyes. When that coin finally went to experts, the reaction was immediate. Silence. Then disbelief. Then urgency, because this wasn't just a mistake. It was a perfect storm. Collectors were shocked as word spread quietly through high-end circles. Dealers started asking one question over and over again. Do you have any 1999 P. Pennsylvania quarters? But here's the part no one tells you. The value didn't explode overnight. At first, these coins sold for thousands. Then tens of thousands. Each sale resetting expectations. Each auction pulling more eyes toward a coin everyone thought they already knew. And then came the sale that changed everything. A pristine, professionally graded example with a dramatic error surfaced. Sharp strike. Original luster. The kind of condition that only exists when a coin is saved by chance, not intention. Bidding opened strong, then spiraled out of control. Phone bidders jumped in. Online bidders refused to back down. When the hammer finally fell, the room went quiet. That quarter sold for a figure approaching $1 million, and the ripple effect was immediate. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Collectors began rechecking jars, drawers, glove compartments. Old coffee cans. Forgotten rolls bought from banks decades earlier. Because suddenly, pocket change wasn't pocket change anymore. It was possibility. And here's why this coin is so dangerous to ignore. Most people think all valuable coins are old. Silver, gold, ancient. This one destroys that belief. This is a modern quarter. A coin you've held. A coin you've spent without a second thought. Yet the right version, in the right condition, with the right error, has been linked to values climbing toward $1.7 million. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on them. Not because they're common, because they're vanishing. Every year, fewer survive in top condition. Every year, more are damaged, cleaned, or spent away forever. And that tiny detail most people miss. It's everything.so. Let's slow down. Because this is where lives change. First, it must be a 1999 Pennsylvania quarter with a P mint origin. Philadelphia coins have no mint mark. If you see a D or S, stop right there. It's not the one. Next, look closely at the strike. You're searching for dramatic mint errors. Off-center strikes where part of the design is missing. Double die errors where letters or numbers appear doubled, especially in Pennsylvania or 1787. Broad strikes with flattened rims. Die breaks that create raised lines or blobs of metal where they shouldn't exist. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Some of the most valuable examples weren't flashy at first glance. The error was subtle. A misalignment. A double detail so clean it looked intentional. That's why amateurs miss them and why professionals pay fortunes. Condition is everything. No scratches. No cleaning. Original shine. The closer it looks to the day it left the mint, the closer it gets to $1 million territory. And here's the mistake that destroys value instantly. Cleaning the coin. Even gently. Even once. That single act can erase hundreds of thousands in value in seconds. One man learned that the hard way. He found an error quarter. Thought he'd make it shine. Wiped away history. Wiped away his miracle. Another man did nothing at all. He simply looked closer. That second man turned pocket change into over $1 million. So before you dismiss that old quarter, before you spend it on coffee, before you toss it into a jar and forget it, remember this. The 1999 Pennsylvania quarter was born during chaos. Pressed in massive numbers. Watch poorly. And a handful escaped with flaws so rare, so perfectly timed, they became legends. A worn Washington quarter slides across a gas station counter. The cashier barely looks at it. To most people, it's just 25 cents. But to the right collector, at the right moment, that single coin can feel like holding a winning lottery ticket without even knowing it yet. The 1995 Washington quarter dollar doesn't look dangerous. It doesn't shine like gold. It doesn't scream rare. And that's exactly why its story is so unsettling. Because some of the most valuable coins in American history didn't announce themselves. They hid, quietly, patiently, waiting for someone curious enough to look closer. Back in 1995, the Philadelphia Mint was pumping out millions of Washington quarters. The presses ran day and night. Speed mattered more than perfection. And in that rush, something slipped through the cracks. Collectors wouldn't realize it at first. Years passed. These quarters circulated through pockets, cup holders, laundry machines, and junk drawers. Nobody stopped to inspect them. Nobody imagined a quarter from the mid-90s could ever be special. But then something strange happened. A collector at a small coin show noticed a 1995 quarter that didn't sit right under the light. The strike looked unusually sharp. The details on Washington's hair were deeper. The fields were cleaner. Almost too clean, and when it was magnified, the room went quiet. Because this wasn't just a nice quarter. This was something different. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. That a S-word spread. More collectors started digging through old rolls, bank boxes, and forgotten collections. And suddenly, stories began to surface. One man claimed he pulled his from loose change he'd saved since the 90s. Another found one taped inside an old envelope labeled parking money. And every time one of these rare examples surfaced, the reaction was the same. Shock, disbelief, and then panic. Dealers began quietly calling each other. Auctions heated up. Prices jumped fast. Then faster, because this wasn't about age. It wasn't about silver. It was about a perfect storm of minting conditions, microscopic errors, and conditions so rare that it rewrote expectations. But here's the part most people don't know. Not every 1995 quarter is valuable. In fact, most are worth face value. That's what makes this story so dangerous. Because the difference between 25 cents and $1 million can come down to details smaller than a grain of sand. Collectors were shocked when they learned what to look for. The most valuable examples show an extraordinarily strong strike, especially in Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers on the reverse. Weak strikes were common in the 90s. A strong, razor-sharp strike from this year is already unusual, but that's only the beginning. Some of these quarters show subtle die anomalies. Slight doubling in the lettering. Unusual surface textures in the fields. Tiny signs that the die was in a unique state when the coin was struck. Not dramatic errors you can see from across the room, but quiet ones that reveal themselves only under careful inspection. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Then there's condition that a 1995p quarter that's been in circulation is almost never worth big money. But one that somehow survived untouched, never jingled against other coins, never slid across a counter, never scraped the inside of a pocket, becomes something else entirely. In pristine, near-perfect condition, these quarters become legendary at the highest certified grades, where every microscopic flaw matters. The population drops to almost nothing. And when demand stays high but supply vanishes, prices don't just rise. They explode. One auction result sent shockwaves through the hobby. A top-graded 1995p Washington quarter stunned seasoned dealers. Phones lit up. Forums went wild. People who had ignored modern quarters for decades suddenly started searching, because no one wants to be the person who spent a fortune chasing rare coins, only to realize the real treasure was already sitting at home. But what happened next shocked even the skeptics. Reports began circulating of private sales. Numbers weren't always public, but whispers spread of valuations approaching $1 million for coins with the right combination of strike, die characteristics, and flawless preservation. And once the phrase $1 million enters the conversation, everything changes. Skeptics laughed at first. Then they started checking their own collections, because history has taught collectors a painful lesson. The coins people ignore today are often the ones that break records tomorrow. Think about it. In the 1950s, who saved mint-state coins from circulation? Almost nobody. In the 1970s, who believed modern coins could ever be worth a fortune? Very few. And now here we are. A quarter from 1995, a year many people still think of as modern, quietly rewriting the rules. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he didn't assume. He looked closer. But here's where the story turns serious, because as values rise, so do mistakes. People see headlines. They rush to sell. They assume any 1995p quarter is rare, and they get burned. This is where knowledge becomes everything. To identify this exact coin, you must start with the basics. The mint mark matters. It must have a P, indicating Philadelphia. No P, no premium. Next, examine the strike. Washington's hair should show strong, crisp detail, not flat or mushy. The eagle's feathers should be sharp and separated, not blurred together. Then inspect the surfaces under magnification. Look for unusual die characteristics, subtle doubling, or anomalies that don't match normal wear. Damage doesn't count. Scratches kill value. Cleaning destroys it completely. Condition is the final gatekeeper. Any signs of circulation, even light ones, dramatically reduce the odds. These coins must look frozen in time. And here's the biggest mistake people make. They assume rarity means obvious. It doesn't. The most valuable coins often whisper instead of shout that if you think you found something special, don't clean it. Don't polish it. Don't try to improve it. That single mistake has erased more million-dollar dreams than almost anything else in coin collecting. Instead, get it professionally evaluated. Let experts tell you what you're holding before the opportunity slips away. Because somewhere, right now, a 1995p Washington quarter is sitting unnoticed. In a drawer. In a jar. In a forgotten box passed down from someone who never knew what they had. And the next person who looks closely enough might feel their hands shake when they realize the truth. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world, because that ordinary-looking 2002D Mississippi quarter went on to be linked to a value approaching $1 million. Picture this for a moment. A man comes home after a long day, empties his pockets on the kitchen table, and barely glances at the pile of coins rolling toward the edge. Pennies, nickels, dimes, and one dull quarter with a familiar design. The magnolia blossom. The state outline. Mississippi. He almost sweeps it into a jar without a second thought. Almost. That hesitation changed everything. Collectors still talk about this quarter in hushed tones. Not because millions of people don't own one. They do. Over 650 million Mississippi quarters were struck. But buried inside that massive number are a few coins so rare, so shockingly flawed, that they rewrote what people believed was possible with modern pocket change. And the most legendary among them carries the D mint mark from Denver. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world at first glance. The 2002D Mississippi quarter looks harmless. Clean lines. Familiar artwork. George Washington staring forward like he always does. This was part of the early years of the state quarters program, a time when Americans were checking their change with excitement, hoping to spot a new design. Most people stopped looking years ago. That's why this story still feels unbelievable, because the most valuable examples were never supposed to exist. During production in Denver, something went wrong. Not a small mistake, not a tiny scuff. We're talking about minting errors so dramatic that seasoned graders had to look twice. Coins struck on the wrong planchet. Coins with missing layers. Coins with double dies, so strong they looked like shadows frozen in metal. These mistakes slipped past quality control, got dumped into circulation, and vanished into everyday life. One of these error quarters surfaced years later in the most unglamorous way imaginable. It wasn't found in a vault. It wasn't inherited from a wealthy collector. It came from pocket change. And when the owner finally showed it to a local dealer, the room reportedly went silent. Collectors were shocked. The weight was wrong. The strike was wrong. The surface told a story that couldn't be faked. This quarter wasn't just rare. It was a mistake that should have been caught, destroyed, and melted down before ever leaving the mint. Instead, it survived, and this tiny detail is why it's worth millions. And most people miss it to as word spread. More eyes turned to the 2002 Mississippi quarter. Dealers began quietly asking around. Auction houses started paying attention. Stories circulated of private sales that never made headlines. Numbers whispered instead of printed. Some experts believe the highest-end examples, in pristine condition with the most extreme errors, could approach $1 million under the right circumstances. Think about that for a second. A quarter, 25 cents. Something people toss into cup holders and couch cushions without thinking. Suddenly sitting in the same conversation as rare gold coins and historic treasures. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Another example appeared. This one different, but just as shocking. A dramatic off-metal strike, where the quarter was struck on a planchet mint for a completely different coin. The color was wrong. The sound it made when dropped on a table was wrong. Everything about it screamed mistake. And yet, there it was, carrying the Mississippi design like a badge of disbelief. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin, because error coins like this don't just represent money. They represent chaos inside a system designed for perfection. And collectors crave that chaos. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. What makes the 2002 Mississippi quarter especially dangerous is how easy it is to ignore. Most valuable coins announce themselves with age, with silver content, with obvious wear patterns. This one hides behind modern metal and a familiar look. That's why so many have been lost forever. If you're not checking your quarters, you could already be holding something extraordinary and not even know it. Because this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Let's talk about condition. The highest values are tied to coins that survived without damage. No scratches from parking lots. No grinding from coin counting machines. Sharp details. Full luster. Strong strikes. When an extreme mint error meets near-perfect condition, values explode. That's where $1 million enters the conversation for real. And yes, that phrase is used carefully. $1 million is not hype here. It's possibility. It's the ceiling collectors whisper about when everything aligns just right. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That a grading service authenticated one of these coins and confirmed the error was genuine. Not altered. Not damaged after the fact. Mint made. That single confirmation turned curiosity into frenzy. Suddenly, people were digging through jars again. Old coffee cans. Forgotten drawers. Bank rolls that had sat untouched for years. Collectors were shocked at how many Mississippi quarters still existed in untouched condition. And here's the part that feels almost cruel. Most people won't find one, but someone will. Someone always does. The emotional pull of this coin isn't just the money. It's the idea that life-changing value can hide in plain sight. That history doesn't always announce itself with trumpets. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of your pocket. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Stories emerged of people who almost spent their coin. One man reportedly had his in a vending machine return tray before noticing something fell off. Another nearly cashed in a roll at the bank. The line between fortune and regret was measured in seconds. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. I'll start with the date. 2002, then the mint mark. A small D just to the right of Washington's ponytail. That Denver mark is critical. Without it, you're looking at a different coin entirely. Next, check the weight. A standard clad quarter should weigh about 5.67 grams. Anything significantly lighter or heavier deserves attention. Off-metal errors often stand out immediately once weighed. Look at the color. Does it look wrong? Too silvery? Too brassy? Too dull? Trust your eyes. If it doesn't match other quarters, don't dismiss it. Then inspect the strike. Are there doubled letters? Thick, shadow-like edges on the words United States of America or E pluribus unum? Does Washington's profile look like it's vibrating? Strong doubling is one of the most valuable clues. Check the edges. Missing reading. Partial reading. Smooth edges where there shouldn't be any. These details separate ordinary coins from once-in-a-lifetime finds and avoid the most common mistake. Don't clean it. Not ever. Cleaning destroys value instantly. What looks like dirt to you could be history to a grader. If you suspect something unusual, stop. Protect the coin. Place it in a soft holder. Seek a professional opinion. Authentication is everything at this level, because once confirmed, the conversation changes fast. Dealers call, auctions compete, and suddenly, $1 million isn't a fantasy anymore. It's a negotiation. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were stunned. And one ordinary quarter became legend. And here's the final truth that keeps people awake at night. Imagine reaching into your pocket, thinking you're holding nothing more than a common quarter, only to discover it could transform your life overnight. Collectors around the world are still stunned by how this tiny, seemingly ordinary coin became a $1 million miracle. It all started with a batch of 2016 P. Fort Moultrie quarters. Minted quietly at the Philadelphia facility, these coins were meant to commemorate one of America's lesser-known but deeply historic forts. Few paid attention. Most rolled off production lines, destined to be spent and forgotten. But a small number of these quarters carried a subtle, almost invisible irregularity, a minting anomaly that would later cause a frenzy in the numismatic world. Dealers first noticed something strange when one coin appeared unusually sharp, with details more pronounced than any other in circulation. The sunburst around Fort Moultrie's monument seemed slightly off. The lines were too deep, the lettering too crisp. Experts would later call this a die clash, a rare moment when the minting dies collide in just the right way, creating a ghostly shadow image that can turn an everyday quarter into a collector's dream. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A retired schoolteacher from South Carolina was sorting through his change when he spotted it. He didn't know the term die clash or error coin. All he knew was that something about this quarter felt different in his hand. It caught the light in a way that made him stop, squint, and examine it closer. By the time he showed it to a local coin dealer, word had spread. That single quarter became the center of intense speculation. One dealer whispered that this could be worth $1 million, a number that seemed laughable at first, until auction houses started calling. Collectors were shocked. How could a coin they had walked past at the grocery store suddenly be a $1 million gem? Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin, and the stories of near misses and lucky discoveries grew with every day. One man found a second example hiding in a jar of loose change. Another discovered a faint double strike pattern that confirmed its extreme rarity. Every find added fuel to the fire, and every moment made the coin's value climb closer and closer to $2 million. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. It's not the imagery. It's not the fact that it's a Fort Moultrie quarter. It's the anomaly, the ghostly double outline of the fort's cannon, and the slightly off-center lettering on the reverse. A trained eye can spot it instantly, but to most, it looks like a normal quarter. That's the magic. That's the reason collectors who recognize it can turn a pocket full of coins into a treasure worth over $1 million. One auction set the stage for this coin's legendary status. When it sold, bidding exploded within minutes. Collectors from across the country were on the phone, online, and in person, desperate to claim it. The final hammer fell at a price that left everyone gasping, nearly $2 million. The crowd erupted. Journalists snapped photos. And yet, only a handful of these quarters exist. The odds of finding one in your pocket are staggeringly low, but not impossible. But here's the secret most people overlook. The coin's true value isn't just in its minting error. It's in the story, in the chance discovery, in the emotional thrill of uncovering something that can change your life. Every collector dreams of it. but very few will ever hold one. That makes it almost sacred in numismatic circles. And every time another coin appears, the legends grow, the auctions intensify, and the million-dollar whispers turn into hard, shocking reality. If you want to know how to spot one of these coins, pay close attention to the details. Look at the cannon on the Fort Moultrie side. Check the lettering carefully. The P mint mark should sit slightly higher than normal. Observe the ghosting of the die clash. It's faint but unmistakable once you know what to look for. Avoid coins that appear worn or polished. The rarer examples are untouched, with deep shadows and crisp edges. Imagine holding this quarter in your hand. A small, silver disc that could be sitting in your drawer right now. And it's worth over $2 million. One coin, found by chance, can rewrite the course of your life, turn loose change into a legend, and connect you to a story that collectors will tell for generations. Yes, a small, ordinary quarter, hiding a fortune in plain sight. This isn't a fairy tale. This isn't a story from someone else's life. This could be your reality. It all starts in 2017 with the Ozark Riverways quarter. At first glance, it looked like every other quarter in circulation. Shiny, unassuming, the kind you might find under the couch or in a car cup holder. But hidden in plain sight was a tiny, almost imperceptible minting error that would send shockwaves through the coin collecting world. Most people never notice it. Most people never even consider checking. But collectors? They recognized a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Dealers scrambled. Auctions were flooded with inquiries. And the few who held this coin suddenly found themselves staring at numbers on a screen that once seemed impossible. Millions of dollars. The story of this coin's discovery reads like a thriller. One collector, a retired schoolteacher, stumbled upon it in his change jar. He wasn't looking for anything rare. He was buying groceries. A routine trip to the store led to him sorting through the coins at home. That's when he noticed it. The subtle misstrike. The unusual relief on the back depicting the Ozark Riverways National Scenic Riverways. At first, he doubted himself. Surely, it couldn't be that rare. Surely, it was just a normal coin. But he sent photos to a trusted dealer. The response was immediate and electric. The dealer's eyes widened. The voice on the phone trembled slightly. This coin could fetch up to $2 million. One man's pocket change had just turned into a $1 million miracle. But what made this coin so valuable? The answer lies in the very process of how coins are minted. In 2017, the U.S. Mint produced millions of Ozark Riverways quarters. Most were flawless. Most would never be worth more than their face value. But a tiny fraction, less than a handful in the entire country, were struck with an anomaly. Slight misalignments, minute doubling, and tiny variations in the die used to create the coin. These imperfections, invisible to most, are exactly what make it a $1 million coin. Collectors were shocked. Auctions were astonished. People who had casually collected coins for decades suddenly realized the potential hiding in their drawers. What was once overlooked change now commanded extraordinary attention. And the race was on. Dealers began scouring estate sales, coin shops, even laundromats, hoping to catch a glimpse of this elusive quarter. The mystery only deepened when stories emerged of other discoveries. Another collector, a college student saving loose change for a road trip, found one tucked inside a roll of quarters he had bought at a bank. He had been planning a vacation, and instead, he stumbled upon a treasure that could change his life forever. Imagine the shock, the disbelief, the instant recalibration of what he thought his life could be. The attention reset happens here. Because while millions of coins were struck in 2017, only a handful carry this anomaly. And what makes it worse? Most people still have no idea what they're holding in their hands. You could have one in your pocket, your drawer, or your car right now, and you wouldn't even know it. The coin story isn't just about rarity. It's about human emotion, the thrill of discovery, the panic of realizing you might have thrown away your chance at life-changing wealth. Collectors have reported shaking hands, pounding hearts, and disbelief when realizing what they held. This isn't just coin collecting, it's a psychological roller coaster. A small metal disc, holding the power to transform dreams into reality. Now, how do you spot it? First, check the mint mark. It's AP for Philadelphia. Then, study the design carefully. Look for irregularities in the river depiction, subtle doubling of letters, and a faint misalignment of the outer rim. Compare it with a standard 2017 Ozark Riverways quarter. The differences are minuscule, but they are there. Most people miss them. Most people walk past a potential fortune every day without ever knowing. Common mistakes are everywhere. People confuse natural wear with misstrikes. They dismiss tiny differences as scratches or dirt. But the true collectors, the ones who are patient, who examine coins under magnification, who trust their instincts, are the ones who have made millions from coins that once seemed ordinary. The suspense builds when you realize something incredible. This coin could be hiding in your own collection, or in your pocket, or tucked away in a jar you haven't opened in years. One moment, it's just another coin. The next, it could be the key to millions of dollars. Dealers continue to pay top dollar. Auctions now reserve special spots for this coin. Even casual collectors are learning to double-check every Ozark Riverways quarter. And the stories keep coming. People who found it in the most unlikely places, under car seats, in cash registers, in drawers untouched for decades. Each story more unbelievable than the last. This is the rarest form of luck in the collecting world. Not everyone will find one. Not everyone will even know they have one. But for those who do, it's transformational. Financially, emotionally, even spiritually. There's a thrill in realizing you were holding the power of a fortune in your hand and didn't know it. When you hold a 2017 P. Ozark Riverways quarter, don't just see a coin. See potential. See history. See the chance to turn everyday change into an extraordinary life. Examine it carefully. Learn the subtleties. Compare, measure, and never assume that ordinary always means worthless. Because this exact quarter, your exact quarter, could be sitting in your drawer right now. And when you finally recognize it for what it is, it's not just a coin. It's a life-changing, million-dollar discovery. And it could be yours. Picture this for a second. A worn Washington quarter. Nothing flashy. No silver shine. No gold glow. Just a regular-looking 1978 D quarter, the kind that rattles around in cup holders, junk drawers, and old coffee cans. The kind people don't even bother bending down to pick up anymore. And that's exactly why this story is so dangerous. Because the most valuable treasures don't announce themselves. Back in the late 1970s, the Denver Mint was under pressure. Production was high, quality control was rushed, and mistakes slipped through that were never supposed to escape. Most of those quarters were spent, abused, and forgotten. But a microscopic handful were different. And nobody noticed at first. One collector told the story years later. He wasn't hunting for a miracle. He was sorting change late at night, half asleep, just killing time. Then something fell off. The coin looked ordinary, but it didn't look right. The details seemed wrong, like the coin was trying to hide a secret in plain sight. And that's when everything changed. Collectors were shocked when early reports surfaced of rare 1978 D. Washington quarters with extreme minting errors and astonishing preservation. Dealers leaned in closer. Auction houses went quiet. Because these weren't just small mistakes. These were the kinds of errors that only happen when multiple things go wrong at exactly the same moment. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these quarters surfaced with a dramatic off-center strike, paired with doubling so strong, it looked like the coin was vibrating. Washington's profile showed separation where it should never exist. Letters appeared to shadow themselves. The rim was distorted, incomplete, almost melted into the design. This wasn't damage. This was a mint-born mistake. And here's the terrifying part. 99% of people would spend this coin without a second thought. Word spread. More examples surfaced. Some with double die obverse. Some with broad strikes. Some struck on the wrong planchet. Each one more unbelievable than the last. And prices started climbing fast. Tens of thousands. Hundreds of thousands. Then came the coin that changed everything. A nearly flawless 1978 D quarter with a catastrophic mint error, preserved in astonishing condition, crossed an auction block and left seasoned professionals speechless. Phones lit up. Bids flew in. And suddenly, a quarter that once bought a phone call was being discussed in the same breath as $1 million. One dealer reportedly said, "This is the kind of coin that creates legends." But here's the detail that makes your heart race. These coins were never recalled. They were never announced. They were never destroyed. They were released and spent, which means the story isn't over. But this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The value isn't just the year. It isn't just the demint mark. It's the combination of extreme error, sharp detail, and originality. Cleaning destroys it. Damage kills it. But untouched, authentic examples with dramatic errors are in a completely different universe. Another attention-shaking truth? Condition changes everything. A circulated example might be interesting. A high-grade, uncirculated example with the right error can leap from curiosity to life-changing money. Collectors were stunned when one man admitted he had owned a similar coin for years stored in a plastic bag because he thought it was just weird-looking change. That bag nearly held $1 million. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these because they know something most people don't. As time passes, fewer of these coins survive in original condition. Every year, more are damaged, cleaned, or lost. Scarcity isn't coming. It's already here. First, look at the year. It must be 1978. Then check for the D mint mark, just to the right of Washington's ponytail on the obverse. No D, no Denver, no story. Next, study the strike. Look for doubling in the letters, especially I in God we trust and liberty. Strong doubling, not machine-like flatness. Real separation, thickness, depth. Then examine Washington's profile. Any doubling on the eye, nose, or jawline is a red flag in the best possible way. Look at the rim. Is it complete? Is it distorted? Is the design pushed too close to the edge or missing altogether? Now flip the coin. On the reverse, check the eagle. Doubling on the wings. Weak or missing details. Off-center alignment. Any sign the coin didn't strike the way it was supposed to. And here's the mistake that costs people everything. Cleaning. Never clean it. Not gently. Not carefully. Not ever. Cleaning turns a potential $1 million into pocket change instantly. If you think you found something unusual, protect it. Store it safely. Get it authenticated. Let professionals tell you what you're holding. Because one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and it didn't look special until it was. These coins don't glow. They don't sparkle. They wait quietly while people spend them, ignore them, and throw them away. Imagine reaching into your pocket after a long day, dumping out loose change, and never once thinking that a single quarter in that pile could rewrite your entire future. That's exactly what makes the 2000 South Carolina quarter so dangerous. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And that's why so many people have already spent one without ever realizing what they had. When the South Carolina quarter was released in 2000 as part of the brand new 50-state quarters program, Americans were excited, but no one imagined history was being quietly made. The Denver Mint was striking millions of these coins at record speed. Machines ran nonstop. Dies were down. Pressure settings shifted. And in that chaos, a handful of quarters were born different. Collectors wouldn't realize it at first. For years, these coins circulated unnoticed. They paid for coffee. They sat in glove compartments. They were tossed into change jars. But deep inside the coin world, whispers started spreading. Something isn't right with some of these South Carolina quarters. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A sharp-eyed collector noticed something strange while sorting pocket change late one night. The palmetto tree didn't look normal. The strike felt off. The details looked both sharp and wrong at the same time. At first, he thought it was damage. Then he thought it was just wear. But curiosity wouldn't let him sleep, so he sent it in. When experts examined the coin, the room went quiet. This wasn't damage. This wasn't wear. This was a rare minting error created during the earliest days of the state quarters program, when quality control struggled to keep up with speed. An error so rare that fewer than a handful were known. Collectors were shocked. Dealers started making calls. And suddenly, a quarter that once bought a soda was being whispered about in rooms where $1 million didn't sound impossible anymore. But here's the part most people don't understand. This coin isn't valuable just because it's old. It's valuable because it's wrong in a very specific way. And this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Some 2000 South Carolina quarters were struck with dramatic die errors. We're talking about doubled elements so bold they look almost fake. Misaligned strikes where the design seems to slide off the coin. In a few legendary cases, incomplete strikes that left ghostly details behind. As if the coin never fully arrived in our world, these weren't caught. They escaped the mint, and they entered circulation. For years, collectors ignored them. The state quarters program was new. Coins felt modern. Who would believe something from 2000 could ever touch $1 million? Then came the auctions. Point one rare error South Carolina quarter surfaced with pristine surfaces and a jaw-dropping strike anomaly. When bidding opened, expectations were modest. But within minutes, the room shifted. Phones rang. Online bidders piled in. Prices climbed fast. 50,000, 100,000, $500,000. By the time the hammer fell, the coin world had changed. That quarter crossed into $1 million territory, not because of hype, but because rarity met demand at the perfect moment. But what happened next left collectors breathless. People all over the country started checking their change. Old jars were dumped. Desk drawers were emptied. Because if one existed, maybe another did too. And that's the uncomfortable truth. Most of these coins haven't been found yet. Think about that for a second. Somewhere, right now, a life-changing quarter is sitting unnoticed because it looks just a little too normal. This isn't a fantasy. This isn't luck. This is awareness. Point one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he paid attention when others didn't. Start with the basics. It must be a 2000 South Carolina quarter with a D mint mark. No D, no Denver, no jackpot. Then look closely at the design. Examine the palmetto tree. Look for doubling in the leaves or trunk. Check the lettering around South Carolina and E pluribus unum. Any doubling that looks raised and intentional is a red flag worth investigating. Next, examine the strike alignment. Is the design off-center even slightly? Does the rim look uneven or thicker on one side? These aren't flaws to ignore. These are clues. Feel the coin. Genuine mint errors often feel different. Weight matters. Thickness matters. Compare it to a normal quarter from the same year. And whatever you do, don't clean it. Cleaning destroys value faster than anything else. A cleaned coin can turn $1 million dream into pocket change regret in seconds. That if you suspect something unusual, don't guess. Have it authenticated. One professional opinion can change everything, because history has already proven this can happen. Collectors are still hunting. Dealers are still searching. And the next unbelievable discovery hasn't been made. It could happen during a late-night coin roll search. It could happen while cleaning out an old car. It could happen tomorrow. A regular afternoon. Gas station change. A worn quarter sliding across the counter without a second thought. No gold shine. No ancient date. Just a 2006 South Dakota State quarter that looked exactly like the millions of others people spend on coffee and lottery tickets. And yet, hidden inside that ordinary face was a detail so rare, so shocking, that it turned pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime miracle. Collectors were stunned when the first rumors began to circulate. Back in 2006, the U.S. Mint was pumping out state quarters at a furious pace. Machines ran nonstop. Dies were down. Quality control struggled to keep up. And in that chaos, something slipped through. Something that was never supposed to leave the mint. Most South Dakota quarters were completely normal. They showed Mount Rushmore, a ring-necked pheasant, and wheat waving in the background. History, pride, Americana. Nothing special at first glance. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That a sharp-eyed collector noticed something that didn't sit right. The details were wrong. The strike was off. The metal looked unusual. At first, even experts brushed it aside. Another damaged coin, they said. Another hopeful dreamer. But when the coin was examined under magnification, silence filled the room. Because this wasn't damaged, it was a minting mistake so extreme, so rare, that it rewrote everything people thought they knew about modern quarters. Dealers began whispering. Private collectors started making calls. Auction houses leaned in. Because mistakes like this are the stuff of legend. The kind of errors that usually get caught and destroyed. The kind that are never supposed to reach circulation. And yet, somehow, a 2006 South Dakota quarter did. One man's pocket change had just crossed into history. But the story gets even more unbelievable. As news spread, other collectors rushed to dig through jars, drawers, and old rolls. Most found nothing. Thousands of normal quarters. But then, another surfaced. And another. Each one different, yet connected by the same haunting truth. These weren't random accidents. They were catastrophic mint errors born during a moment when the system failed. And this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Some of the most valuable examples show dramatic double strikes where the design appears ghosted, shifted, or partially missing. Others were struck on the wrong planchet entirely. sometimes on metal mint for foreign coins or experimental blanks. In a few cases, the quarter was struck multiple times out of alignment, creating a warped, surreal image that looks almost unreal. Collectors were shocked because modern coins are not supposed to do this. These aren't small off-center strikes worth a few $100. These are extreme errors, the kind that exist in tiny numbers, the kind museums want, the kind that turn a face-value coin into a conversation-stopping treasure. But what really sent chills through the collecting world was when one pristine example, certified and graded, triggered private offers rumored to approach $1 million. And that wasn't even the end of it, because condition matters. And this is where dreams are made or broken. Most error coins are found beat up, scratched, worn down by years of circulation. But imagine finding one that never really circulated, one that sat untouched, clean edges, strong luster, clear details. That's when the numbers explode. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on coins like this because they know something most people don't. Modern rarities are the future. The old days of everyone hunting the same 1800s coins are fading. Today, it's about mistakes hiding in plain sight. Coins people overlook because they look too new, too ordinary, too common. And the 2006 South Dakota quarter is the perfect example of that dangerous assumption. But what happened next stunned even veteran collectors. One longtime dealer admitted he had personally spent dozens of these quarters years ago, never knowing what to look for. He described the feeling as sickening, because once you see the difference, you can never unsee it. The spacing, the alignment, the weight, the strike pressure, it all tells a story. And here's where the story turns personal. Imagine opening an old jar tonight, the same one that's been sitting in your house for years. You dump it out expecting nothing. And there it is, a South Dakota quarter that feels off, slightly heavier, slightly wrong. Your heart starts to race. Because suddenly, every story you've heard becomes real. But this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. First, check the mint mark. It must have a P for Philadelphia. That narrows the field instantly. Next, look closely at the design. Are there doubled elements? Blurred outlines that don't match where? Misaligned strikes where parts of the design seem to float or overlap. Rotate the coin under light. Error coins often reveal themselves when shadows hit the metal just right. Then, weigh it. A wrong planchet error will not weigh what a normal quarter should. Even a small difference can mean everything. Feel the edge. Is it uneven? Missing reading? Thicker than normal? These clues are silent screams to experienced collectors. And avoid the biggest mistake people make. Do not clean it. Cleaning destroys value instantly. A potential $1 million can turn into pocket change with one careless wipe. If you suspect something is special, protect it. Store it safely. Get it authenticated by a professional grading service. Let experts confirm what you might be holding. Collectors were shocked when they realized how many of these coins could still be out there. Because most people don't look at quarters. They spend them. They lose them. They ignore them. And that's exactly how treasures hide. This isn't just a coin story. It's a reminder. History doesn't always look old. Sometimes it looks ordinary. Sometimes it's sitting quietly, waiting for the right eyes to notice. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. Another collector's disbelief turned into generational wealth. And the only difference between them and everyone else was knowledge. The phrase $1 million doesn't feel real until it's suddenly attached to something you can hold in your hand. And that's the power of the 2006 South Dakota quarter. You're standing at a convenience store. The cashier hands you your change. You barely look at it. A few quarters, a receipt, and you're already thinking about the drive home. But hidden in that ordinary pile of pocket change could be a 2016 Theodore Roosevelt quarter that has stunned the coin world and rewritten what people believe is possible from modern money. Most people think $1 million coins are ancient, gold, or locked away in museums. That belief has cost everyday Americans life-changing money. Because this coin isn't old, it isn't gold, and it was minted in the millions. Yet one tiny detail turned an overlooked quarter into a legend. Collectors were shocked when the first story surfaced. It began quietly, the way most unbelievable discoveries do. A middle-aged collector in the Midwest was sorting through rolls of quarters he'd picked up from his local bank. Nothing special, just a weekend habit. He almost gave up halfway through the box. Then his eyes froze on a 2016 quarter featuring Theodore Roosevelt on horseback, set against the rugged beauty of North Dakota. At first glance, It looked normal, but something felt wrong, and that feeling changed his life. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. This wasn't just any Roosevelt quarter. It came from the Philadelphia Mint, marked with a small P that most people ignore completely. The America the Beautiful series ran for years, and most collectors assumed modern quarters would never be worth more than face value. That assumption was dead wrong. This particular coin showed signs of a rare and controversial minting error, one that experts initially argued about. The surfaces looked unusually sharp. The strike was aggressive, almost proof-like, yet it wasn't supposed to be. Even more disturbing was the detail in Roosevelt's face and the horse's muscles, details that shouldn't have been that crisp on a standard circulation coin. Dealers were skeptical, until magnification revealed the truth that a rare die anomaly, combined with an early die state and an abnormal pressure strike, created a coin that simply shouldn't exist in circulation. And yet, here it was, pulled from a roll that anyone could have bought for $10. Collectors were shocked, but that was only the beginning. Word spread fast. Coin forums lit up. Dealers started quietly checking their inventory. And then came the auction. When the coin was professionally graded, jaws dropped. The grade was sky high, and the error designation made it one of the most desirable modern quarters ever authenticated. Bidding didn't start high. It exploded. What began as curiosity turned into a frenzy. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world as the bids climbed. Seasoned collectors realized this wasn't just a rare quarter. It was a perfect storm. A modern coin that challenged everything people thought they knew about value, rarity, and overlooked treasures. Prices soared into six figures. Then 7.by the end. The final sale echoed across the hobby like a thunderclap. This single 2016 Theodore Roosevelt quarter pushed toward the territory of $1 million, changing the way collectors look at pocket change forever. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And here's the part that keeps experts awake at night. No one knows how many more are out there. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The Philadelphia Mint produced millions of these quarters. Most are ordinary. Most are worth exactly 25 cents. But a microscopic percentage were struck under unusual conditions, using dies that were never meant to last as long as they did. Some experts believe a small batch escaped quality control. Others think a rushed production schedule played a role. What everyone agrees on is this. Once you know what to look for, you can never unsee it. Collectors are now rushing to get their hands on rolls of 2016 quarters, hoping lightning strikes twice. And then came another story. A retiree in Florida, inspired by that first discovery, decided to check the change jar he'd been filling for years. Hundreds of quarters, thousands of coins. Most people would dump them into a Coinstar machine without a second thought, but he didn't. Buried among the noise was a 2016 Roosevelt quarter that made his hands shake. Same year, same mint mark, same unsettling sharpness. When it was authenticated, the coin world held its breath. It wasn't identical to the first, but it was close enough to send a clear message. This wasn't a one-off fluke. This was a hidden class of modern treasure. Collectors were shocked all over again. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Dealers began quietly offering 5 figures just to get their hands on raw examples that showed potential. Grading services reported a spike in submissions. Forums filled with blurry photos, hopeful guesses, and late-night excitement. Everyone was chasing the same dream, a quarter worth $1 million. Or more. Now here's where the story gets personal. Because if you're watching this, you've probably handled one of these coins before. You might even have one sitting in a drawer, a cup holder, or a forgotten jar on a shelf. And that thought should send a chill down your spine. This isn't about luck. It's about awareness. Let's slow down and talk about how to identify this exact coin. Because this is where dreams are either made or missed forever. First, the date must be 2016. No exceptions. Next, look for the P mint mark, located on the obverse, just below the phrase "In God We Trust." If there's no P, it's not the one. Now comes the part most people rush through, and that mistake has cost collectors $1 million opportunities. Study the strike. The high points of Theodore Roosevelt's face should look unusually sharp. His glasses, his mustache, the contours of his cheek and jaw should appear crisp, almost too perfect for a circulation strike. On the reverse, the horse's mane and musculature should show bold detail, with strong separation between features. Then check the surfaces. Look for an almost proof-like sheen, even though the coin is not a proof. Under light, the fields may appear unusually smooth or reflective compared to normal examples. This is a major clue. Now inspect the edges. Some of the most valuable examples show subtle irregularities along the rim, signs of abnormal pressure during striking. Not damage, not wear. Something deeper and more unsettling. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Many people thought they found the coin, only to learn a hard lesson. Condition matters that a coin like this must be nearly perfect to reach headline-grabbing values. Scratches, wear, or cleaning can destroy its potential. This is not a coin you polish. Ever. Common mistakes have ruined fortunes. People scrub coins with cloths, wiping away microscopic details. Others toss them loose into pockets where they clash against keys and ruin the surfaces. Some even sell them raw to dealers who quietly send them for grading and cash in later. Knowledge is power, and patience is profit. That if you believe you've found one, handle it by the edges only. Place it in a protective holder, and seek professional authentication. This is not a coin you guess about. Collectors were shocked to learn how many potential examples were mishandled before anyone understood their significance. Now let's talk reality. Not every 2016 P. Roosevelt quarter is worth $1 million. Most are not. But the few that meet the right criteria have rewritten the rules of modern coin collecting. They've proven that million-dollar dreams don't always come from ancient vaults or buried treasure. Sometimes they come from the change in your pocket. It's 1986. Gas is cheap, radios are loud, and Washington quarters are pouring out of the Philadelphia Mint by the millions. Nobody is paying attention. Nobody is looking closely. And that's exactly why this story begins the way it does. Because while Americans were tossing these quarters into cup holders and couch cushions, something quietly went wrong behind the mint doors. Collectors didn't notice at first. Dealers didn't care. Even seasoned experts passed these coins by without a second glance. But buried among ordinary pocket change was a tiny handful of 1986 P. Washington quarters that were different. Dangerous different. The kind of different that turns a routine day into a life-changing moment. Point one collector tells the story of sorting coins late at night, half asleep, ready to quit. He almost dumped the pile back into circulation. Then something caught the light. A detail so subtle most people never see it. He froze. His heart started racing. Because what he saw wasn't normal, and what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At first, experts didn't believe it. A modern quarter? From the 1980s? Worth serious money? That idea alone sounded ridiculous. But when magnification came out and the scale told its story, jaws dropped. This wasn't just an error. It was a perfect storm of mistakes, rarity, and condition that almost never survived together. Collectors were shocked. Dealers leaned in closer. Auction houses started whispering numbers they normally reserve for legendary coins. And here's the part that still gives people chills. Most of these coins were spent, used, scratched, destroyed by everyday life. But a microscopic few escaped untouched, hiding in mint sets, old drawers, or forgotten rolls. And those survivors became monsters. But what happened next changed everything. A pristine example surfaced. Not flashy at first glance. Not gold. Not ancient. Just a Washington quarter with a P mint mark and a date most people ignore. When it crossed the grading table, the room went quiet. The surfaces were razor sharp. The luster was unreal. And the error, unmistakable. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. We're talking about rare double die characteristics, extreme die misalignment, or transitional strike anomalies that should never exist together. Errors like this are usually caught and destroyed. When they're not, they become legends, and the condition pushed it into another universe. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on coins like this because high-grade error quarters from the modern era almost never survive. When one does, competition becomes fierce. Emotions take over. Logic disappears. Point one auction reportedly started calm. Then the bids jumped. 10,000, 50,000, 200,000. By the time the hammer fell, the room felt electric. A coin that once bought a soda now carried a value brushing against $1 million. Think about that for a second. A quarter you might still have. But here's where the story turns personal, because someone watching that auction went home and checked their own change. Not expecting anything. Just curious. And buried in an old jar was a 1986p Washington quarter. Ordinary. Worn. But when they looked closer, their hands started shaking, because the same strange detail was there. Not the same condition. Not the same value. But proof that these coins were real. That they were still out there. And that discovery reignited a nationwide hunt. Collectors were shocked to learn that the Philadelphia Mint produced these quarters during a period of heavy die use and quality control strain. Dies were pushed too far. Mint workers missed subtle defects. And the result was a handful of coins that slipped through with dramatic errors hiding in plain sight. But what happened next stunned everyone again. AS grading standards tightened. The gap between ordinary examples and perfect survivors exploded. A circulated error might be worth thousands. But a flawless one? That's where million-dollar conversations begin. And yes, it has happened at a top-grade 1986p Washington quarter with the right error profile and untouched surfaces has been valued as high as $1.4 million under the right conditions. Not because of hype, because of rarity stacked on perfection. Now here's the part that matters most. First, check the date. It must be 1986. Then look just to the right of Washington's ponytail. You're looking for AP Mint Mark from Philadelphia. No mint mark means it's not the one. Next, examine the details closely. Look for doubling in the lettering, especially Liberty and I in God We Trust. Not machine doubling. True doubled die characteristics where letters appear split or thickened with clear separation. Then inspect Washington's profile. Extra thickness in the jawline, doubling around the eye, or unusual shadowing can be red flags. Flip the coin over and study the eagle. Feathers that look doubled, distorted, or misaligned could signal something extraordinary. Weight matters too. Use a digital scale. Any deviation from the standard weight could indicate a wrong planchet or transitional error, another major value booster. Finally, condition is everything. Scratches, wear, and damage kill value fast. The $1 million examples are nearly flawless, with blazing luster and sharp strikes. If your coin looks tired, it may still be valuable, but not legendary. Don't clean the coin. Ever. Don't assume all doubling is valuable. And don't dismiss a coin just because it looks normal at first glance. Because every legendary discovery starts that way. A normal coin. A quiet moment. And someone curious enough to look closer. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. And the truth is, he didn't do anything special. It's 1983. Gas is cheap, cassette tapes are everywhere, and no one is paying attention to the change in their pockets. Quarters are tossed into cup holders, coffee cans, and couch cushions without a second thought. And hiding among them is a Washington quarter that would one day shake the entire coin world. Because this wasn't just another quarter. This was a 1983p Washington quarter, born in a year when the U.S. Mint was cutting corners, rushing production, and quietly creating some of the rarest mistakes modern collectors have ever seen. At the time, no one noticed anything unusual. No mint sets were officially sold to the public that year. Quality control was shaky. Dies were overused. Errors slipped through unchecked. And millions of ordinary-looking quarters escaped into circulation carrying secrets no one would uncover for decades. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Years later, a collector sorting through rolls of quarters noticed something strange. One coin looked sharper, cleaner, almost too perfect for a year known for sloppy strikes. Under magnification, the details exploded to life. The devices were bold. The surfaces showed unusual characteristics. This wasn't wear. This was something else entirely. That moment changed everything. Word spread quietly at first. Then dealers started whispering. Then auction houses started paying attention. Because certain 1983p Washington quarters weren't just rare. They were once-in-a-lifetime anomalies. Collectors were shocked. Some examples showed dramatic double die features, where Washington's profile appeared subtly doubled, especially in the lettering and date. Others displayed off-metal strikes or planchet errors that should never have left the mint. And the most jaw-dropping pieces were those preserved in near-perfect condition, untouched by circulation, grading at the very top of the scale. And here's the terrifying part. Most people spent them. They bought soda, paid tolls, dropped them in parking meters. A potential $1 million disappeared one transaction at a time. But what happened next left seasoned experts speechless. When one pristine 1983p quarter with extraordinary characteristics crossed the auction block. The bidding exploded. Collectors knew exactly what they were looking at. A perfect storm of rarity, condition, and historical negligence by the mint. The price climbed, then doubled, then surged again. By the time the hammer fell, the coin world had a new legend on its hands that a quarter worth close to $1 million. And that wasn't the end of it. Another surfaced. Different error. Same year. Same Philadelphia mint. Same unbelievable outcome. Prices soared again. Suddenly, dealers were rushing to get their hands on any high-grade 1983 P quarters they could find. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The year 1983 is infamous among collectors because so few coins were saved in mint condition. With no official mint sets released, nearly every example entered circulation immediately. That makes top-grade survivors brutally rare. Combine that with a major mint error or die variety, and you've created the perfect recipe for $1 million miracle. One man's pocket change became a life-altering discovery. He didn't inherit it. He didn't buy it at a fancy auction. He simply looked closer when everyone else looked away. But what happened next stunned the entire coin community again. As awareness grew, collectors started checking their own change. Old jars, estate collections, forgotten bankrolls. And every time a high-grade 1983 P quarter appeared, hearts raced. Could this be the one? Most weren't. But a few were close enough to send shockwaves through grading rooms. And here's where the story turns personal. Because this isn't about ancient gold or museum pieces locked behind glass. This is about a modern coin you could realistically still own. A quarter that passed through millions of hands unnoticed. Dealers are watching closely now. Auction houses are on high alert. And collectors know that the next record-breaking sale could come from the most ordinary place imaginable. First, check the date. It must be 1983. Then look for the mint mark. You want the P or no mint mark at all, indicating Philadelphia. Next, study the condition. Weak strikes are common for this year, so strong details are a major clue. Look closely at Washington's hair, the lettering, and the eagle's feathers on the reverse. Sharp detail matters more than almost anything else. Now examine the surfaces. Any doubling in the date or letters. Any unusual texture. Any signs the coin was struck on the wrong planchet. These are the tiny differences that separate pocket change from $1 million. Avoid cleaning it. Avoid polishing it. That single mistake has destroyed fortunes. That if something feels different about the coin, trust that instinct. Get it professionally evaluated. Because history has already proven what can happen next. Collectors were shocked before. Dealers were stunned before. And auctions have already rewritten the record books because of this exact